Hey, welcome in.
Welcome to the Arrowhead Addict podcast.
We are here coming to you live.
Let me tell you, the dopamine, it's flowing.
I am damn excited. Damn excited.
That's a terrible drum roll.
Oh!
Boy, how you doing, man? Patrick.
Will Sterling.
Yeah.
Super Bowl champion, two-time Pro Bowler, and Trent Green. Trent Green, how you doing?
Hey, what's going on, guys?
Oh, he picked it up! He picked it up! He's gonna score!
And we'll see you next week. But until then, as always, go Chiefs.
Welcome into the Arrowhead Addict podcast. This is the Intangibles, and we are 10 days away from the NFL draft. It's the best time of the year, and there's no other person in the whole wide world that I'd rather be talking about the Chiefs draft with right now than my co-host Christian Amesworth. Christian, it's getting close, man. How are you holding up?
Oh, I'm doing good, man. Thanks for the warm intro, dude. I appreciate it. Yeah, this is gonna be a great show.
You text me, I think like Saturday or something. I don't know. It all blurs together. But you text me and you said, how many players are you up to? Formally, 100, where like I'm sitting down, I'm writing notes. But if it's informal, like the amount of people that I just like pull up and like, let's take a look at this guy or something, it's got to be getting close to like 150, 175. Just to kind of like lay eyes on them and know what I'm talking about. Here's the thing. I cannot rely on other people's analysis for these guys. Like if I read what someone else says about these guys, one, it seems disingenuous, and two, I'm not going to remember it. Like that's like, the capital of Wyoming, which if you know what that is, props to you. But like, that's just a raw fact that I'm just memorizing, but laying eyes on them, it's the experience, right? Like I was just taking a look at before we got on here, Upton Stout, which is like the 22nd, 23rd CB in the draft, a slot/safety CB out of Western Kentucky, which I like him. I like him a lot. He's a little small, but lays the thump. But yeah, it's a great time. So how are you doing with all this?
Oh, I'm not as far as you are. I'm at about 80 or 89 prospects. That's about, I haven't gone through and done the math 100%, but around 80 to 90. And dude, it's funny. I guarantee we do not watch film the same, because when I start off looking at a prospect, I have that same idea of you, where it's like, hey, I gotta, really get a beat on what they are. I'm not just gonna take, what somebody else says about them. Because if you heard like a Drake London comp for Tet and that's what you went with, you're gonna look like an idiot. You know what I mean? But like, I'll throw on the highlights and just like 4 or 5 running backs, just highlight reel, and be like, okay, what's like the ceiling for these players, right? And then, I just wonder what the count, like how many hours, if you had to count it up, we have both put into the draft this year. It's got to be 100 plus, right? I mean,
one thing that I try to do when I'm doing like a formal evaluation on a player is, one, I want to make sure I expose myself to different levels of competition in different years. I try to get 2 years in as much as possible. In fact, I talked about that today. I went back and watched 2023 Nick Scorton, which is just an insanely different player than the guy who played at Texas A&M this year, which, man, you want to get excited about Nick Scorton. The 2023 tape at Purdue is where it is. He's running down JJ McCarthy from the back and getting him and blowing up Blake Corum in the backfield. Just a lot of great plays. Honestly, the first thing that I try to do, no notes. Like I want to sit down and watch this guy for like probably 30 minutes or so, just taking it in, the experience, right? Like not writing anything down. Then I start writing down timestamps and stuff of things I want to clip, etc. So it's a very exciting time. And we've got some fun stuff to talk about today. We're going to be going over the players that the Chiefs they have met with, the confirmed 30 visits that they've made, and also their combine visits. We're not gonna break down every single guy because the list is quite long, but we're going to take a look at those guys and talk about what we can notice from the trends of the players that they're bringing in. And maybe some names that really excite us, maybe some names that don't excite us. And odds are, like historically, the Chiefs usually draft at least one or two players that they have a 30 visit with. So the odds are today we're going to be talking about someone that the Chiefs will draft. They had a 30 visit with Kingsley Suamataia. They had a 30 visit with Rashee Rice. So they typically draft these guys that they do bring in, at least one or two of them. And then after that, it's time to submit our homework. I text Christian. I said, you've got homework today. You need to submit your final predictive mock to me. Well, not actually to me. I haven't seen it yet. To Richard, and I submitted my final predictive mock. So this isn't what we want the Chiefs to do. This is what we think that they are going to do. And we're going to look over them. We're going to compare them, talk about what we think the Chiefs are going to do. And then we're going to put next Monday, just days before the draft, we're going to reserve that for two things. We're going to be talking about our guys, our top 10 guys that we fell in love with this class and why we love these players. And then we're going to also save the back part of the podcast to start talking about the rumors, because usually about that time of year or this leading up to the draft, we start getting some actual morsels of like what the Chiefs are sniffing around from some of the guys who do this for a living. So very excited to get to all of that. Christian, real quick, just tell me, like, what is your impression of what a 30 visit is? Like, why do teams do it and why do you think it's valuable?
So it depends on the team, obviously. But if I was going to have a 30 visit in, it would be on players that I have some questions about. Like if I was looking at offensive tackles, it's like, hey, the arm measurements are a big deal to me. Like if I'm Kansas City, it's like, let's make sure that that's the way that it is. Let's get a visit with these guys. Are they committed to football? Are they not? Just kind of answering questions on some of like the outer prospects that I'd be looking at that I'm taking a flyer on. You know what I mean? The guys towards the end of the draft. I would not use a 30 visit on somebody I'm drafting at 31. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think you'll see different philosophies on this all over the place, right? Right now, it's very trendy for the insiders to be reporting, Jalen Walker, he's meeting with the Patriots, he's meeting with the Panthers, those type of things. Teams really do have different strategies on these type of things. I know, I think it was Todd McShay who was talking last week, who said like teams will bring in players to throw off the scent of like, hey, we might be interested in this guy, when in reality they have no reason to want to visit with these guys or want to draft them. Like a team that we might think doesn't want a quarterback brings in a quarterback to make teams think about like, oh, hey, we might have to trade with them or jump in front of them if we want to get a draft day deal going. A lot of times it appears to me that the Chiefs, they do bring in players that they like, that they have a notion of wanting to draft. We heard the stories of Kingsley Suamataia that they really liked him. Then you go a year back, Rashee Rice. We now know that there was definitely some off the field questions with Rashee Rice. I've shared the story several times that a former NFL scout that I've done some podcasts with and stuff told me that Rashee Rice was off several teams' boards due to those concerns. So this year, we can go ahead and start taking a look at the list here, but they had Isaiah Bond in. Now, I said, I think it was last week when we did our episode with the Character Concerns podcast, that I thought Isaiah Bond had Chiefs written all over him. There was just at that point rumors and whispers about his off the field concerns. I think like later that day, or maybe it was the next day, he turned himself in on a warrant for his arrest for sexual assault. That changes things. Those are some really ugly things, especially with the unknown part of it still out there. But that would be a guy that you would want to bring in for a 30 visit, where there's some character questions, some legal concerns. What is this type of guy? What is this type of person? Medical rechecks are another one. The Chiefs, they met with Joshua Simmons. They had him in for a 30 visit. No doubt that some of that is to check the medicals. They can give them their own physical when they come and visit. Something else to note here too about 30 visits is the local part of it. If a player is deemed a local player, they don't actually have to use those 30 visits for them. So don't hang your head if you're a Mizzou fan or a Jayhawk fan or a K-State fan. They can use those local visits without it counting against the 30 formula. So I know for a fact that Jacob Parrish, the slot corner from K-State, and Devin Neal were in the building for the Chiefs local pro day that they do. So they've met with them and laid eyes on them as well too. I don't know anything about like Luther Burden or DJ Giddens or some of the other local guys. I'm sure they would love to meet with Armand Minbu. I'm not sure they'll get the chance, but that's just a little kind of like what these are. The top 30 moniker, that the phrase top 30, I'm not really sure where it comes from. Some people still use it. I think it's getting phased out more and more. It doesn't imply like this is a top 30 player. It's their top 30 players or whatever. It really, again, I'm not sure where it came from. I always try to be careful and just use 30 visits.
Yeah, yeah. It is one of those things where if like you're just hearing about it in passing, like you don't have a good vision of the Chiefs or vision of the draft, you're kind of like, oh, so they brought in like the best 30 players in the draft. It's like, no. Completely different. Very important. There's some really interesting guys on this list. I'm just going through it again while you're reading, and dude, I can't wait to get into it. Who's like the guy on here that you really see is like that's like we'll go left tackle first. Who's that guy from the top 30 visits?
Yeah, let's actually, hey, Richard, if you want to go ahead and put that up for us. Thank you so much, sir. So over here, we've got the two different ones. The 30 visits, these are guys who are coming into town to meet with the Chiefs. And then on the right side, these are players that they met with at the combine. Keep in mind, we don't hear about all these visits that happen at the combine because the Chiefs, they reportedly did meet with Xavier Worthy at the combine last year, loved him, but just never thought that they'd have a shot at him. But we didn't hear about that, right? So taking a look at these 30 visits, I'm not going to read off every single one of these names. One, because there's some that I will inevitably not be able to pronounce. And two, that would be a little boring. So if you're audio only, sorry. But I do want to point out some of the trends that I notice here, right? So one thing that jumps off the page real quick is the amount of left tackles and tackles in general. Ariantre Urshri, a kid from Ruskin who played at Minnesota. Anthony Belton, Caleb Etienne, the left tackle who took over for Kingsley Suamataia at BYU, Oregon State, Jared Christian Leitinen, the other Kansas tackle, not Logan Brown. Again, the names Bryce Cabdoodle, Issa. I read today on the Beast. It's Issei Pole for the Washington State left tackle. And going down the board here a little bit, let's see if there's any other tackles that I see. Those are all the tackles. Oh, nope. Josh Simmons, and they met with him, the Ohio State left tackle. So there's a wide range of players there. With Urshri and with Josh Simmons, those are guys who are going to be day one or day two prospects. So they're thinking that they're liking those players. First off, just, what are your takeaways on Urshri and Josh Simmons as far as why would the Chiefs be taking a 30 visit with them?
Well, I mean, Josh Simmons, that's really expected. Any mock you've seen with the Kansas City Chiefs, Josh Simmons has been like the pick. I don't know why. Personally, I don't think that he'll be there. I think people will look at those first couple of games and see a player that could have been a top 10 pick if not for the injuries. And if they're cool with the injuries and want a little bit of risk, yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's going to get taken pretty high. Ariantre Urshri is a little bit difficult for me to understand. I know he has the length, which is something that we always look at with the tackles, but he's a run first guy, is he not? I mean, watching his tape, he was not adept at pass pro.
Yeah, for sure. I think Kingsley Suamataia was kind of the name that came to mind when I took a look at him. I think he's a better mover in space. I think he'd do really well in like a Shanahan zone run scheme because I do think he's a surprisingly good mover for his size. But keep in mind, this is a guy who started 40 games at left tackle, and we're still talking about the pass protection still being a raw trait. So it's not this is a newcomer. He started playing football, I think, when he was like 19 or something. So a little bit new to the game overall, but this is still a guy who's played a lot of football. To me, I kind of look at this and I look at tiers. The Simmons one, it's very easy to understand why. One, so many people mock them to the Chiefs because the Chiefs, they've been looking for the left tackle since Eric Fisher, right? And this is a rare situation where you have a guy who is a top 15, top 10 talent as far as when he was healthy on the field this year, but that wasn't very often. And we've only got 1 year of tape that is that level. So that one makes sense. Urshri, it may be the Ruskin tie. I just come back to one thing with this tackle class over and over again. One, we don't know if the Chiefs will break their thresholds. The Chiefs have never drafted a tackle with sub 34-inch arms. Almost every tackle on this list has sub 34-inch arms. We'll get to a few that don't, but almost all of them do. So are the Chiefs willing to compromise that? Jalen Moore does not have 34-inch arms. Mitchell Schwartz did not have 34-inch arms. They were shorter than that. They have shown that they will break that threshold for NFL players. The other layer to this is, what the hell was going on at the combine with the guy who got pissed off measuring their arms, who was having a bad day or whatever. If they choose to believe the pro day numbers, then Josh Simmons meets the 34-inch threshold. So we will just have to see on that. Like, if there's one thing, if we're sitting here at pick 31 and we're like, you know what? We were the idiots. Mel Kiper and all those guys who mocked the Chiefs, Josh Simmons, over and over again, they were right, because like the thing we miss is that the Chiefs, they're just going to believe the pro day numbers or whatever that is. So, Urshri, Simmons, they kind of fall into that bucket. Then we get this layer of project tackles. Anthony Belton's a big guy. He's someone who's lost some weight over his time at NC State. I think, he falls into that, another bucket of like that kind of big, raw, traitsy. And then we get this layer of guys who are just like UDFA tackles, like Caleb Etienne, these are grades that I think Issei Pole will definitely go on day 2 or day 3 out of Washington State. But he's another guy, like, does not meet the Chiefs threshold. So maybe they're thinking some more interior offensive line depth, which would be a little frustrating. They met with the Oklahoma State offensive tackle, Dalton Cooper. He profiles as a swing tackle, or just kind of like a do-it-all, kind of like a Nick Allegretti, or a guy who could play all along the offensive line. He's played at multiple spots. So the tackle position, it definitely jumps off to me here. And then if you jump over to the combine meetings over here on the right, they also met, and this is a name that I think we're going to be talking about a little bit today, is Cam Williams, the big right tackle out of Texas, 1-year starter. Dane Brugler was talking about him a little bit, brought up the name Amarius Mims as far as like the projection goes as to the type of player. The tape was not as good as Amarius Mims' tape was. And also, there's some questions about like how his body's going to hold up. He's a guy who I think when he came to Texas was around 370 and came to the combine at like 320. And then at the pro day was 340. So there's some fluctuation with the weight there. But he's another name. So the tackle, the Chiefs are very clearly turning over every stone. And they also met with Josh Connerly, who I know Nate Tice and Mike Tice, his dad, who is an NFL offensive line coach, they have him as their first tackle. They love Connerly. So there's some real love for Connerly out there as well, too. So the tackles, they're turning over every stone there.
Oh, yeah. And one name that I want to bring up, which is just totally a Veach pick here, is the Jared Christian Lichtenhahn, however it's pronounced. Have you taken a look at his measurements? Because it's like 36 plus inch arms. And by no means is he, using those arms like you should be, because if he was, he would be in the top 50 picks for sure, just with that build. But he's somebody that like kind of intrigues me there as a left tackle.
Yeah, him, Caleb Etienne's in that same bucket, and I want to throw, just so I say his name on this podcast. So if he turns out to be a dude, Jalen Travis, the left tackle from Iowa State, a converted in basketball player, came to football late, played his first 2 years at Harvard. So this is a guy who's very intellectual, 36-inch arms, 6'8", but moves really, really smoothly. You can really see the projection here. Kind of reminds me a little bit of Kyron Armagachi from Yale, but he's smoother than that. And you can see the basketball in his game and his jump sets. Really liked him. All right, let's get off the tackles, because tackles are not as fun to talk about as some of these other players, right? So we see Damian Martinez. We've not really talked about him. The running back from Miami. He has been one of the more tough players for me to evaluate in this class. I took a look at, sometimes I'm limited by the tape I have. In case you don't know, there's not just a nice little website like NFL Pro that you can go to and get this tape. You've got to go to like a guy who's behind a Burger King, flip him a 20 in a dark alley. It's a complicated system to get college all 22. But Damian Martinez, when I took a look at him the first time, I was like, I just don't see it. Like, this is a guy who I think is measured by his floor, not his ceiling, not a lot of explosiveness, but someone mentioned like, hey, go watch some of the later stuff. He like surged at the end of the year. And upon the recommendation, I went back and took a look. I'm a little bit more all in. I think he showed more burst. I don't know if he wasn't healthy. What do you think of Damian Martinez?
I agree with you. He was an interesting player to evaluate. I don't have him that high, especially late season Miami. Like, there were a couple of things working that could have been working against him, I guess. But when you look at the other like players that are in this draft class, if Damian Martinez is drafted like in the top 100, I got some real questions about their evaluating of running backs. But like as a later pick, yeah, absolutely. If that's like our late flyer that we take on a running back, sure. I just really I would be heartbroken if we made it out of here without somebody like a DJ Giddens. But when you're talking about these top 30 visits and UDFA potential like late round picks, it's like, oh, it's kind of anyone's guess as to where they're going to go and what they're going to turn into. But it's also not a huge investment either. There's somebody that I'm a little more interested in, and I want to know if you got to watch him at all. Shunderick Powell out of Central Arkansas. Did you watch him?
I actually read about him a little bit today. I did not get a chance to look at him again. I'm just limited at it. I might have to just like do some YouTube or Twitter searching and see what I can find. But it does kind of look like, and you bring up kind of an interesting class of player here where it looks like they're kicking around those day 3 cornerbacks again, right? Another name out of their Division II product, Southern Arkansas, Melvin Smith Jr. He's a guy who played outside corner, slightly undersized, but not super undersized. They're kind of sniffing around these, day 3 corners again. Now, they did meet with some more high-touted prospects at the corner position at the Combine. Ole Miss cornerback Trey Amos, a guy I really like. And then they met with one of your guys, Darian Porter. Why don't you tell me why you like Porter so much?
Darian Porter. Hold on. Where's that at?
Oh, you're pulling up.
Sorry, my screen just went black.
Well, I mean, when I looked at Porter, one of the things that me and you were talking about with him is that when you look at this year's tape, you're like, and then you look at the combine numbers, you're like, oh wow, like this guy's, the arrow is only pointing up on him. This guy has a potential to be a round 1 or early round 2 pick. But then you go and look at a 6-year senior, going to be turning 25, his rookie season, only 1 year of production, really for a guy who struggled to find the field. And also the special teams is exciting like that. That's something there, but that's not really what you want to spend a early day 2 pick on.
Yeah. So what I saw with Darian Porter is he's a wide receiver convert, and we had a conversation about him a few days ago because I just started watching his tape and I was like, oh my God, dude, like this is an athlete. This is like a man coverage corner you can put on the outside. You're like, have you looked at his age? He's 25 years old. He's a project at 25, which is a hard sell for any NFL team. But like, man, there are some reps that he has where he's like running the route for the receiver, and you see like the fluidity in his hips, and he's got that like big RAS number with the quick feet, and you see the fluidity, and you're like, man, this could be like, if he was a corner the whole time, my God, he'd be a top 5 pick. Unfortunately, like I said a second ago, he's 25 years old. So
yeah.
I mean, probably not my cup of tea watching him and, doing the full eval. But if you're just looking off film, you're not looking at anything else, like he's a fun player to watch.
Yeah, and I think like if he does, slip into day 2, especially middle of day 2, we've seen the Chiefs go a little bit older there. They don't in round 1, but Brian Cook was a little bit older. He's a guy that I thought occasionally like relied on that all-world athleticism to help him recover from stuff. Like the instincts, they're still not there compared to some of the other guys in this class who have great instincts. But overall, I think like he's a guy that Dave Tobe would surely love to get in the building. And if you're comfortable with taking a guy who's going to be turning 30 after his rookie contract, that's okay. Real quick, I want to go back to the running back position. The opposite of Damian Martinez, Arizona running back, and really he only played 1 game for Arizona because of some basically really odd situation that happened with his eligibility where they like mistook his number for another player. Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, an explosive passing down back, but can run between the tackles, really shifty, highly productive back. Most of his time, I believe, was at like Southern Alabama or a smaller school like that. And then he transferred to 1 season at, I think, Nevada or New Mexico. That's what it was, New Mexico. And then to ironically, the 1 game that he did play at Arizona was against New Mexico, which, by the way, Ted McMillan goes bonkers in that game. Like, it's like, oh my God, he scored another touchdown in this game. But have you got a chance to look at Krosky-Merritt? And I mean, this is a guy I think we'll be surprised at how some of these running backs fall.
Oh yeah, he's somebody that I looked at a little bit earlier than I think most did. I saw that 2023 stat line of like 1,300 yards and almost 20 touchdowns, and you go, oh, okay, this guy is going to be a player. You know what I mean? This is not a jag. This is not just a guy. This is a guy that can come in and play legit snaps for you. And then the eligibility issue in 2024 kind of, threw a wrench in the works there. But he's definitely somebody who's explosive. I don't like him as much as I like somebody like Brashard Smith out of SMU, or not SMU. Where is he? Brashard Smith.
Yeah, Brashard Smith, SMU.
SMU. Okay,
Yeah.
all right. He's also an older prospect, like 6th-year senior, 24 years old during the draft. So, not super high up my board, but as a late round flyer, again, like when you're looking at these players and you say, would you like him on my team? Absolutely. Like Merritt would fit perfectly with the Chiefs. He would be a fantastic fit.
Yeah, and we talked about this a little bit, that like we feel like running back is a position that we're going to get a good idea of what the Chiefs are actually thinking about the running back position based upon the type of player that they bring in. Damian Martinez screams, we want an every down guy.
Yeah.
We're tired of seeing these wide gaping holes that are opened up by the passing game, by a good interior offensive line. We're getting ready to pay Trey Smith. Let's get Damian Martinez, who, like, the vision is a strength. He's going to hit lots of singles and doubles. He's going to get on base versus, Krosky Merritt or a Brashard Smith, or maybe they go for more of the splash, like a Travion Henderson, RJ Harvey, a guy I really like. We're looking to get more dynamic on offense, right? So interesting there. I want to talk to you about a guy that I don't know if me and you have spent a lot of time talking about. And it's Harold Fannin Jr., a very polarizing player in this class. The Chiefs had him in for a 30 visit. Let's talk about the tight end out of Bowling Green. First off, the most productive tight end in all of college football this season. You want to talk about an offense that runs through a tight end. Probably the only other offense in college football that revolved around the tight end this much was what Michigan did around Colston Loveland. But he was the sunrise and the sunset in that offense. Now, Fannin, he's a guy who can run out of the slot. He at Bowling Green, which is obviously a little bit lower level football, played wide tight end, which means, Y basically he's got his hand in the dirt. H, he's off the line of scrimmage. They even use him outside, and they use him in the screen game. Highly, highly productive. What makes him a bit of an enigma is he's 6'3" and about 240 pounds. That's pretty small for a tight end. Then you're like, okay, well, if he's undersized and he's this productive, surely he has some pretty elite level athleticism. Well, at the combine, he came back with pretty average testing numbers, in the top 25% of tight ends all time, but I believe it's like a 7.43 relative athletic score. Not something that you really want to rely on. And it's like, okay, he's too small to block at the NFL level. He's not a guy that you want to put in a situation where he has to win necessarily against corners, because corners are going to be far more athletic than him. And he's not so big that he can just outmuscle him. What type of player is Harold Fannin Jr.? And you just got to come back to one of the most productive tight ends in college football. So what are your thoughts on him? One of the more polarizing players in the class.
So watching him play, I kind of saw him as like the Ashton Genty of the tight end room, where it's like you have this elite production and then the rest of his stuff kind of doesn't really jive. Now, Ashton Genty is a fantastic player. Don't let me put him down too much when talking about Harold Fannin. But like you kind of watch Genty's game and you go, I wonder if that's going to translate. And I kind of thought the same thing watching Harold Fannin, where it's like, listen, you're not a wide tight end. He's not going to be there inline blocking to help you get those short yardage situations. It's like, okay, Travis Kelce isn't that, but he's a great big slot. Like, can Harold Fannin be a great big slot? It's like, do I want him on outside linebackers and kind of nickel corners? Say, not really. I mean, you talk about athleticism, to be a nickel corner in the league. Like, if you're a slot corner, you have to be super athletic. And, I don't really like that situation. And then you think, okay, well, he can go be an X. Like, maybe you can put him out there, line him up as like an outside Y, where he's on the line on the opposite side of the field and it's one-on-one and you just beat somebody. And it's like, well, I don't really know if I like his physicality enough to be able to beat somebody like, I don't know, Charvarius Ward on the outside, who's got these big hands that can just maul you at the line, long arms. He, to me, is a player that is a player without a position and not a positionless player, where, it kind of that Isaiah Simmons, where it's like, dude, he could play anywhere. It's like, okay, well, then why doesn't he? Like, that's just where I see Harold Fannin. He would be. I do like how he runs his routes. I'm not gonna bag on him too hard here, but he does have some upside as like a wide tight end, but he's just not gonna be where the production should probably place him in the draft, if that makes any sense. Like, he's not gonna be worth a top 50 pick, I don't think, even though he was the most productive tight end in college football.
Yeah, it seems like the pendulum has kind of swung more to like late day 2, early day 3 for him. And yeah, I think like the questions you bring up, they're valid. Is this a player that doesn't have a position because he can win everywhere, or does he not have a position because he's not particularly great at one thing? You talk about like not just corners, right, but safeties. Like Nick Eman, who might be a first round pick in this draft, is like literally bigger than him and a better athlete.
Yeah. Yep.
It's tough. It's tough. If you want to tell me that the Chiefs bring him in and they have a plan for the tight end room and it looks something like, we'll take Travis Kelce out of the conversation for a second, because the likelihood that Harold Fannin would be brought in, it'd be almost all without him in the building. Travis Kelce, that is. So Noah Gray, Jared Wiley, and then like we'll bring in another kind of traditional wide tight end, and then Harold Fannin is just a true joker, a guy that we're going to line up all over the field. Occasionally we might ask him to play H or something like that, but like the Travis Kelce doesn't block thing, that is something that is definitively it exists, but it is not necessarily true. Like if Travis Kelce lines up on the line of scrimmage and puts his hand in the dirt, you at least have to consider that he's going to block, right? And can at least push and pester. There are plenty of examples of him making impact blocks or just winning off the line of scrimmage as a traditional tight end. Harold Fannin could do some of the things that Kelce does. So like if you're talking about there's a 1-for-1 replacement there, then all right, like I could see it, right? So I will say, one of the games that people point out is the Penn State game. That is a game that like I watched, and he was almost the best player on that field besides Abdul Carter. The only other thing that I'll bring up is the offense really changed from one year to the other. He was a much better blocker the year before in 2023. There's some videos of him blocking as an H, as a Y, Abdul Carter, and doing a pretty good job with the chip and stuff like that. So again, you gotta expose yourselves to 2 years of tape on those guys. But a really interesting player in this draft that I think, some people, if you're looking optimistically, you're saying this is the next Isaiah Likely. And if you're looking pessimistically, you're saying like, kind of like you said, like the Isaiah Simmons type of player where it's just like, there's just not really a great place for him to win at. All right. So real quick, as we wrap up the 30 visits and the combine meetings, you can pull a magic lever right now, and the Chiefs draft one of these players on the list. Who do you want it to be?
Omar Norman Lott from Tennessee, the D tackle. To me, he's the perfect guy to come in, be a rotational pass rusher with that NASCAR package that Spags likes to use. And you just go, hey, we're putting you one-on-one. Chris Jones is getting doubled. Chris Jones is getting doubled. Just go beat somebody. Like, use those arms, get underneath. He does this like lever thing where he lifts up, like he'll let these guards put their hands into him and he just goes, whoop, lifts them right up and gets right past them. To me, that's like the number one name on this list that I go, okay, initial impact is fantastic. The pass rush has been kind of lacking in the past couple years, depending on how you view like FAU. Is the ceiling really that high this year for a good pass rush? It's like Omar Norman Lott fixes all of that. And I think he'd be a great, not super expensive either. You could probably get him in the second, I think, and be all right with that.
Yeah. You kind of took mine, 26% pass rush win rate for Omar Norman Lott, the best of any defensive tackle in this class, better than Mason Graham, better than Walter Nolan, better than all of those players. And part of that is that he barely played the run. Tennessee runs a really heavy platoon system, wasn't exposed to the run very much, explosive. Quite honestly, at times looked like the best pass rusher on that team, including James Pierce, who is, figures to be a first round pick. So great choice there. He's a guy that you could drop into that same role as the guy who left went to the Panthers. Turk Wharton. Drop him into that same role as Turk Wharton. So just for the sake, I'll pull a different lever, and I'm going to, in typical Price fashion, I'm going to cheat here a little bit. I'm going to say Darius Alexander because I really like the player, but I don't think the Chiefs would spend a first-round pick on Darius Alexander. I love Darius Alexander in the second. Don't love him at pick 31. Highly explosive, rare athlete at the position, dominated at the, MAC level, a guy who I think like can hold up against the run, but is a penetrating 3 tech. Love him moving in space. He's a guy that if he's the 63rd pick, that really excites me because one, it makes me think that they're really bullish on his ability. again, I just don't love the value at 31 because I think there's some other players who might have a higher ceiling than him. Again, a little bit older of a player. I believe he's a 5th or 6th year senior, but another guy that would really excite me, especially if he's there in round 2. So let's get to our homework here, Christian, and I want to grade yours first. So I'm going to take a look at your mock. We use the mock draft database here for this one. One, we've done the PFF simulator here before, and so we wanted to mix it up a little bit. And two, I think that this does about as good a job as any as far as like where players are consensus ranked at. So let's start right here at the top. You have at pick 31, Travion Henderson, the running back out of Ohio State. So this is your predictive mock. This is what you think this is going to happen. Obviously, there's going to be like 257 players drafted, so your odds of actually nailing the player are slim. But tell me why you chose Henderson here as the 31st pick, and do you think would they take another running back at 31?
So I think Travion Henderson is probably the guy if they're going to take a running back in the first round. Now, my reservations about Travion Henderson. I question the vision. I think that he maybe was not as productive as he could have been. To be fair to him, Quinshon Judkins, who I think is the better running back from Ohio State, has an insane pedigree and was fantastic every single year he played college football, going back to when he was 19. So, that's not entirely on Travion Henderson. I have Travion here because I think he fits the exact role that was left with Samaje Perine and Jerick McKinnon, where it's like, hey, we need you to step in on third downs. Even if you don't run the entire offense at the beginning, let's say the vision problems are there. It's like you are an impact running back in the first round. This is exactly what they wanted Clyde Edwards-Helaire to be back when they drafted him at pick 32. It's fantastic pass pro, great receiving back out of the backfield, and has running upside. And I think the Kansas City Chiefs probably view him as like a Jahmyr Gibbs type of player who you can develop the vision and he becomes one of the most explosive players on the offense. I think that they know that need is there. And I think that, that pass rush upside, I really think is what is going to seal the deal for them. When you see him blocking a defensive tackle that splits between the line and he just hits them and knocks them over, you go, oh, okay, this is another tackle in the backfield. This isn't another tight end or running back. This is another guard we have stepping up to protect Patrick Mahomes. And, we talk about the tackle class and how kind of spotty it is this year for the Chiefs. He seems to, kind of fit that need of a reliable blocker that can come in and help. You don't just need tackles, right? You need running backs too. So Travion Henderson, that's the rub with him as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, and one thing that I want to bring up with Henderson too is, and someone brought this up in the comments about that he's a third down back, and I don't think that that's necessarily what you're bringing in Travion Henderson to be. I agree that what you said, that the role that is vacant right now is a third down back, but if you're going to spend the capital it's going to take to get Travion Henderson here, the plan is more of a Jahmyr Gibbs type of player, where this is a change of pace back that can make real impact in the pass game and in the running game, and make, honestly, your backfield more dynamic in more than one way, because now you've got to defend the perimeter, right? The perimeter is not a space that a lot of defenders have to worry about in the Chiefs run game right now because they just don't really utilize it effectively. Now, one other thing that I want to ask you is, do you think that the Chiefs would take a different running back at pick 31? Let's just, Omarion Hampton falls, or maybe they really like Quinshon Judkins, or is another player, or do you think that it's basically Henderson or bust?
I'd say Omarion Hampton would maybe give them pause, just because I think he can do a lot of what Henderson can do. He's got a bigger frame, maybe not as fast as explosive, but still has that explosivity that you look for in a running back. But that's it. I don't think that they're in on Quinshon Judkins. I think this is a bit high for another player they might like, DJ Giddens. And then, even guys like Brashard Smith, who can kind of provide that same type of role that Travion Henderson is. You're talking way later in the draft. So if Travion Henderson is there, this to me is the Xavier Worthy of this draft, where it's immediate impact player. I don't think they see anybody around that area as far as draft capital wise that they would like as much as Travion.
Let's move on to the 63rd pick. You have Cameron Williams, the right tackle out of Texas. I think the reasoning here is pretty obvious with the Chiefs having a need at tackle. I guess I'll ask you this. The Chiefs take Cameron Williams at 63. What is the plan for him as the next tackle in Kansas City?
So the plan is to sit behind two established semi-established tackle in Jalen Moore on the left side and then Juwan Taylor on the right. And you go, I think if you look at the tackle room right now, you see two guys who are capable starters. I'm a little bit higher on Jalen Moore than most. So you see two guys that can step in and play. And then you think long-term, hey, do we have a right tackle of the future? Are we going to re-sign Juwan Taylor? Are we, happy with what he's done so far? And then the uncertainty about Jalen Moore and his contract. And you go, here's a guy who can sit for a year. He can play, like, maybe if we need him to play swing, like if Jalen Moore gets injured or Juwan Taylor, and you go, okay, just sit there, learn. There's some questions about your weight fluctuation. We'll get you at the perfect weight that we want, that we think will be best for you. Just take a year, learn as much as you can. And I think Cameron Williams is one of those tackles that's very developmental. I think that he needs to develop more as a player, and he fits all of the measurements and, kind of tangible things the Chiefs like. 34.5-inch arms is more than enough for Brett Veach. So that would be my plan if I were Kansas City. I would imagine that they would have that same thought.
In 2026, where does Cameron Williams play?
Right tackle.
Yeah, that's the only place that he played at Texas. I have Cameron Williams on my mock too, just to spoil it just a little bit. So I'll get into it. It's not so much that I love the player. I do think at the right place that Cameron Williams can be palatable. There's some moments that are pretty rough on tape for him at Texas.
Yep.
But it's just the constant thought that the Chiefs will invest in a project tackle, likely on day 2. And I think that the plan there is he eventually takes over for Juwan Taylor, like you said. I think unless he's just putting something so horrific out there that Jalen Moore will be the left tackle this year. That is the plan. I would just be really surprised if the Chiefs invest a first round or second round pick in a left tackle to replace the guy that they just gave like $25 million guaranteed to. So I agree with you. Next up at pick 66, you have TJ Sanders from South Carolina. Tell me a little bit about why you like him here.
So the first thing, 33-inch arms. And when you're looking at defensive tackles and defensive linemen in general, and you see 33-inch arms, you go, holy shit, this guy's probably pretty good at playing football. And you watch his tape. Yes, he absolutely is. He's an athletic pass rushing defensive tackle. Very, very quick off the ball. Now, he's pretty light. That's going to be the thing. He's not going to be a 3-down guy. I think a lot of people have TJ Sanders going higher than 66. But I think a lot of people are going to be bullish on his potential as a 3-down player. But I just see the potential. I see the way that he can, get past those guards and beat double teams. And I go, man, we got to invest D tackle at some point. This seems like a perfect time for a guy like TJ Sanders. Why not pull the trigger?
Yeah, he to me is a little bit more of a gap shooter, 3-tech. Tyler Booker handled him. I don't know if you took a look at the Alabama game. That was one of the first ones I went to, and like a ringing endorsement for Tyler Booker, the player. But yeah, TJ Sanders, I'm a little bit lower on, but 66, I certainly like him as far as the fit goes. I think we all agreed that they're at least taking one defensive tackle in this class. It's the most obvious hole in the roster, and it's also the most depth at the position. Keep in mind too, I've seen this in the chat. This is a predictive mock. This is not necessarily what we want as much as what we think will happen. Reading the tea leaves and following along with the class. So at 95, you have a player that's a lot of fun. It's Torrey Horton, the wide receiver from Colorado State. So first off, tell me why you like Horton here, and then how do you think the Chiefs view the wide receiver position in general here?
So I like Torrey Horton because I think that he can step in and fill that X position. He can contribute immediately on special teams as well. I don't know if you saw, he returned a lot of punts at Colorado. He's also a player that got pushed down a lot of people's boards. Like I see him there at 95. And if you're watching,
keep in mind, he tore his ACL pretty early this year. In fact, early enough that he was able to test, which is pretty surprising. The game that I always come back to him with was the primetime game in 2023 against Colorado, where he looked like almost the best player on the field besides Travis Hunter. So, but I love the fit here, especially because this is a guy who can play X, right?
Mhm.
So I think that makes a lot of sense. Sorry, I interrupted you about Horton.
No, you're good. Hey, if you want to give me a ringing endorsement, I'll take it anytime, man. But yeah, 6'2", 196. I think he needs to bulk up a little bit. But that 4.46 40 time, it shows on tape, man. Like, he's a deep threat. He can get downfield. He can moss guys. I'm not sure of his contested catch rate. I thought I had that written down, but he did a very, very good job in the games that I watched of him in doing that last year. And he's an interesting, you talked about watching multiple years of film. If you watch his transition through the NFL and you watch 2022, where it's like, hey, he's the occasional deep threat. Then you watch 2023 and it's like, oh, okay, we're starting to get volume. And then the start of 24, where it's like, hey, he's averaging 12 receptions a game. He's a volume target. He's beating teams. He's become a really, really good wide receiver, like very, very deceptive in his routes. Doesn't get pushed off the spot as much as you'd think for a guy who's 196 pounds. And you see him drop down to 95. And it's like, guys, what happened? This is supposed to be a guy up there we're talking about next to like Jalen Noel if he's healthy the entire year, or like Jack Beck. And nobody's talking about him. I think he's a fantastic player. And for Kansas City, they see the need at the X position. Like, I think that they know that they don't have that true guy there. We know Juju can step in.
And I think he's their type of X, where it's like,
Yes.
this isn't as big of a body guy. I'd put Jack Besh into that same conversation too. Or like, you even think about Juju Smith-Schuster, who right now is like the closest thing they have to an X receiver on the roster. He's another guy that, like, could run out of the slot. Yak is one of his better skills, not exactly a contested catch winner, not exactly a big physical presence on the outside, but can do it. So I totally see that as well too. In an effort for time, why don't you just kind of run me through your last 4 picks here? Barrett Carter, the linebacker out of Clemson, at 133, 226. We didn't do any trades, by the way, just because like it starts getting even harder to predict with that. Katan Crawford, Shamari DK, one of your guys, wide receiver out of Florida, and rounding it out with Robert Longerbeam, the cornerback from Rutgers.
So Barrett Carter, Clemson, linebacker. To me, he comes in and fits that role that was desperately needed last year with a guy who can cover running backs out of the backfield and tight ends. And you look at the frame, 6 foot, 231. It's like he's not going to be an every down back in the league. That's why he's going at round 4, pick 133. But super fluid, great coverage instincts. Maybe you can blitz him. He's not super quick. He has the 4.6, 440, which for a linebacker is pretty good. I don't know if that necessarily shows up on tape, but he's a guy that I think you could look at and be like, hey, I see a kind of niche role in the Spags defense for you. And if not, you're a special teamer and you'll be great because you're 6 foot, 231 pounds and run a 4.6, 440. So kind of high floor, not super high ceiling, but definitely a spot. And then Katan Crawford, I don't know if you know, this is Patrick Mahomes' guy. This isn't my guy. This is Patrick Mahomes' guy. When we were watching the combine and watching these dudes run the 40s and do their long jumps, Katan Crawford was tearing it up. So he's 5'10", 202, 9.9 RAS. So very, very high. Ran a 4.41 40 time. And Patrick Mahomes noticed and tweeted about it. This guy is tearing the combine up. He is doing a fantastic job. I also called him Cuz. I don't know. I'm a little bit, too Midwestern white to know if that's actual cousin or if that's just kind of brotherly type of thing, but shouted him out. This dude is not afraid of contact. He can be a box safety. He can be a free safety. He can be a slot corner. He does have to develop a lot to be able to do that. And he doesn't really have that size that you look for at 5'10". There was a cornerback that got drafted a few years ago. Was it James Jones by the Patriots? He was a slot guy who was very undersized, but was a fantastic punt returner in college. That's Katan Crawford. I think he can play that role for you. He's not going to be the best DB on the field. He's probably not going to play major snaps. But again, you've got a special teamer who can come into a punting or punt return, kick return room that's kind of been lacking that X factor as of late. So I like him there. Shamir DK, the wide receiver out of Florida, 6 foot, 196, 9.8 RAS, 4.3, 440. This is another guy you can put at the X position and is the Chiefs' kind of prototypical X, where it's like, hey, Are you better out of the slot? Yeah, probably. Are we going to put you at X anyway and just let you drag routes so we can get guys open underneath? Yeah, we're going to do that. The best part about him, though, and where I think he fits in perfect with the Chiefs, is he's like a deep cross genius. Like anytime you have him running a deep cross, he knows. I don't know if it's just because he has a good vantage point and he can see the defense really well, but he just cuts right where you need to cut. It seems like he's running his routes different every time he runs it, and that's not always a bad thing. But yeah, I think he comes in and again, he can provide you something on special teams if you need it. 6 foot 196 and you run a 4.3, they're going to find a spot for you. And then Robert Longerbeam, CB out of Rutgers. This is like the perfect Spags like pick, late round CB who nobody's heard of and just, comes out and shows out. 32-inch arms, ran a 4.40. Obvious special teamer if you really need him to be that, but he's got great coverage instincts too. I think he can develop into something, even if it takes him a few years to do so. But I mean, 5'11", 32-inch arms, you run a 4.4. Again, you're talking about athletes here that can, still have a high ceiling, but provide a high floor as well. So, what did you think about it? Was this is this something you could see happening, Price?
Yeah, and I mean, you kind of took the same mentality that I did with the mock, where it's like, obviously we're not going to kneel out every single one of these players. It's more about what type of players do we think we're going to take in and what type of positions that they're going to take, right? Weston brought it up that like he didn't see Travion Henderson going this high. I think that there's a good chance this year that we see players go because it's like, hey, we don't have a big difference between the 31st player on our board and the 63rd player on this board, but we know this player won't be there at 63. I would say the chances of Travion Henderson, Quinshon Judkins being there at 63 are pretty slim. So, like, if you like them, take them at 31 because they're not going to be there later. But yeah, this feels very cheesy to me. I like the linebacker addition. I think that, linebacker, corner, safety are all things that I think we might be sleeping on a little bit as far as like when they're getting added, because the Chiefs, they like to draft ahead of these needs. So let's go ahead and take a look at mine. We'll zoom through this one since we got some nice analysis here. Christian, your questions, please.
So why do you, and you've said this a few times, why is Walter Nolan the Chiefs' pick of all time?
Well, I think with Nolan, the first thing you talk about is the pass rush upside. He's a better run blocker than he's given credit for, or a run defender. His highs are as high as any player in this. I think like his highs are top 15 talent in this class. There's a few motivation questions, right? Like it sounds like this is one of those guys that, not every program's just glowing about whenever he walks out of the door. I can't remember. I don't want to name it specifically because I don't remember, but there's some things like, he left practice a few times getting frustrated, those type of things. But the thing is like when you look at him, you see the body type of a Chris Jones. He is not as big as Chris Jones. He's more like 6'3", but the way he carries his weight, it really screams like a natural explosive athlete. And I think you get excited about him, the player, because you see players with his body type, with his profile, winning at the NFL, right? Like a Jalen Carter, like just Jeffrey Simmons, that type of thing. An impact run defender and a guy who penetrates and honestly, like plays with such a tenacity that sometimes it gets him in trouble. Like there's some clips of him like shit talking someone on the ground while the play is still happening. Sometimes he wants to destroy the guy across from him more than he wants to make a great football play. But he's a guy that like the character questions, the productivity profile, another guy who suffered from the Texas A&M like defense. So he's a guy that I ultimately I think that they take a defensive tackle in the first round. Tyleik Williams, Walter Nolan, Derek Harmon, I mentioned Darius Alexander. Like, I think that that's probably the position they're most likely to go to there. So I put Walter Nolan here thinking that if he's there, he'll probably take him. I think there's a chance he goes higher. I think there's a chance that he falls out of the first round. But defensive tackle feels the most likely pick at 31.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And Walter Nolan I talked about the Chiefs he has picked. He plays all over the defensive line. Perfect come-in fit. He can do just about anything you needed to. Quinshon Judkins, the Ohio State running back. Why him and not Travion Henderson?
Well, actually, so I put him here thinking like, I think, this could be Travion Henderson. He wasn't available for me at this time, but I think that the Chiefs will want to get serious about wanting to make their off. I think they come out of this draft with one move, kind of like the Xavier Worthy move, where people look at it and say, oh, that can't happen. That shouldn't be happening. That's the last thing you want to see this offense get. And I think it's going to be at the running back position this year. And a guy like Quinshon Judkins out of Ohio State, Travion Henderson, maybe they like Caleb Johnson, or maybe they've got their faith in another back, right? Like Dylan Sampson, a guy that Binkley really liked. But overall, I think that this is the place that they make that move, because I think that this is probably the place that they're going to find an impact player, right? Like, we know they could in the first round. They're probably not going to get up there to get like a Omarion Hampton or an Ashton Genty. So if they're going to do that, it's going to be here. So I do think that they make one splash on offense early on day 2 with either 63 or 66.
Yeah, and I agree. Running back is the position that they're going to do it this year, if they're going to do it anywhere. Like, there's no wide receiver that you look at and you go, oh my God, the Chiefs have to have him. Or, oh my God, what if the Chiefs get him? But there are a few with running backs where you go, Quinshon Judkins on the Chiefs. Oh my God, why did the NFL let this happen?
Yeah.
And you see those memes all over X. Already talked about Cameron Williams a little bit, but
yeah,
Jordan
just the
Burch-
belief that, on Cameron Williams, just the belief that the Chiefs are going to take a project tackle, whether we want them to or not. And Cameron Williams, I think he's the right tackle of the future. Jordan Burch fits into kind of that same well of like a Savion Jones and Elijah Roberts, a longer, less bendier, more power-based edge defender who can reduce inside to a 3-tech or something like that. That feels like a well that they're going to. I think that they do have a sneaky need at edge. And I feel pretty confident that like one of those guys is going to be coming to Kansas City at some point. A Jared Ivey, someone I'll throw in there as well too. To me, I think that this is more of like a eventual replacement for Mike Dana rather than trying to like replace Kingsley Suamataia or George Karlaftis. This is a player that can play on early downs quickly because of the run defense, and then they can work into pass rush packages more. This is your Charles Omenihu type rusher eventually. So I think that they take edge, and I think it'll probably be either on day 1 or day 2.
Yeah, that's a solid bet. They always seem to come out of these drafts with at least one edge player. Quincy Riley. Now, would you rather have, if you were picking here, you're the Chiefs GM, would you rather have Quincy Riley or Mello Dotson as kind of your outside zone CB?
I think Quincy Riley's the better athlete. So, and I feel a little bit better about Quincy Riley, the tackler. This could kind of be the same spot that we talk about, like Darian Porter, right? That we're talking about. He won a high school state championship in, I think, the 100 or 2 meter 100. So he's very quicky, very twitch. I like his ability to mirror and match. One thing that I like about him as for a Chiefs corner, he finds the ball well. 54 passes defended in his 55 games, several interceptions over his last 5 seasons. He is a 5th-year senior, virtually no penalties in his last 23 games. And coaches rave about him right now. He's a little bit smaller. I think that like, I think some people look at him and say slot. I think that he could play on the outside. Jalen Watson's kind of a similar profile as far as size goes. But I like the idea of having a corner that's got some upside, because you are one injury away from being right back where you were with the corner room before, and that wasn't good enough. And oh, by the way, Christian Fulton has never played 17 games in his career, so he's not going to. So Noel Williams, another guy out of Cal, great instincts. He's a guy that I like in this spot too. I know some of my friends are really hyped about Noel Williams in the draft community, but I think the beginning of day 3 could be a spot. The epic mock event that I kind of tweeted about and stuff, I traded out of the first, picked up an extra day 3 pick and grabbed that corner of the future. So that's what I think is going on here.
Yeah, and I agree. And the next guy is maybe my favorite pick of this of your mock draft, Jalen Lane, the wide receiver out of Virginia Tech. Just talk about his twitchiness, man, and like how he's the perfect Kansas City slot wide receiver.
Yeah, this is again just like the well of wide receivers that they've kind of been looking at. The Sam Brown out of Miami, Jalen Lane. Obviously, they brought in Isaiah Bond. I think that was probably more about the character than it is the player. But Jalen Lane's another guy that you're going to create in space. I think that they want to outsource that McCole Hardman role. As silly as it sounds that they have to have an Xavier Worthy and a McCole Hardman role in the offense, I do think that they want to get Xavier Worthy to be doing more of the real wide receiver stuff. And, some of that creative player stuff that they did for Hardman, for Worthy this year. Jalen Lane's a guy who can do that, right? Sam Brown's a little bit more of a traditional X. He's kind of more similar to your like DK or like a Torrey Horton. But I do think that they might want to find a player that they can create for. Dare I say it? I don't want to say it, but like a Tez Johnson out of Oregon, right? Where it's a guy who's like, this is a guy that we want his average depth to target to probably be like 1 yard or less. that's fine in the 7th round. And Jalen Lane's the type of guy who can do that for you. He does have speed. And yeah, I mean, if you get him on a wheel route or something like that, he's a guy that you're, oh gosh, there he goes. Right. And that's really what you want in this offense is like, you want to have enough speed that it's just like, we can't defend the field vertically and horizontally. My next pick, Shamar James. Linebacker is a spot that I think the Chiefs will draft. One, they're high level special teams like contributors, right? Like I really like Sean Doluck out of Buffalo, linebacker from out of the MAC. Shamar James is another guy that I think like there's some people that really like him. He's starting to rise at boards. He's traitsy. He was the leader of that defense. I like him as a guy who can come in and kind of just contribute early. And, like really the goal is here is like replace Cole Christensen, right? And then like eventually maybe take over because we don't really know what the linebacker room looks like next year after Drew Tranquill and potentially after Leo Chanel. And then I doubled up on running back here. I think there's a chance the Chiefs do this because like next year they could be without Elijah Mitchell, Kareem Hunt, and Isaiah Pacheco. Donovan Edwards is just a value pick. High-level relative athletic score athlete. I just went back and watched the Purdue-Michigan game because I was taking a look at Nick Scorton. Donovan Edwards gets a wheel route, and he catches it over the back shoulder like this, out of bounds, toe taps for like a 40-yard game on an absolute seed from J.J. McCarthy. You forget that, like, forget the video game cover for a second. You forget, like, how high Donovan Edwards' stock was last year. In my way too early 2025 mock, I think I mocked him in the 2nd round for the Chiefs. High-level athlete, poor vision, lost his job this year in an offense that had all sorts of issues. I don't know, man. I kind of like Donovan Edwards. I think like that's a great value pick. And, we can throw some other names in there like a Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt or something like that, a Mr. Irrelevant. But hey, like, Keaton Mitchell made an impact on the Ravens a couple years ago. UDFA. We see this happen all the time. So double up on a position that honestly you have a bigger need at. And the worst thing that's going to happen is like, oh no, like, we cut Elijah Mitchell out of camp because Donovan Edwards says so much, or we tried to sneak Carson Steele into the practice squad. I do think that like Isaiah Pacheco and Kareem Hunt's roster spot's probably pretty safe, but hey, it's okay if we have like 4 running backs that can all take serious carries.
Oh yeah, and with the addition of Quinshon Judkins already in the draft, it's kind of like, it's very, very low risk, right? It's like, let's get this guy who was literally on the cover of college football a year ago. Like, let's see what he can, let's bring him in and see what he can do. Like, can he even make the roster? No, dude, I love it. Quinshon Judkins, obviously my favorite pick, maybe my favorite player at the draft, but overall, I really, really liked it, man.
Yeah. And, I think like for both of our predictive mocks, we've got a pretty good sense of what the Chiefs are going to do, the positions more than anything. Let me ask you this. If the Chiefs double up on a position, what position are they most likely to double up on?
I would say either D tackle or running back. I think those are the two that I would, if I was Brett Veach, those would be the ones that I would, double dip in. If not for like that extra lottery ticket, then just for guys who can maybe eat up downs for,
I'm going to go, I think I might say corner. I think it could be corner.
Really?
They've got a whole wave of them. Again, guys who can play special teams right out the gate. I know that they signed Christian Fulton for 2 years to kind of bridge that gap post Joshua Williams, Jalen Watson. I wouldn't be surprised if they took 2. Give me a traitsy guy like a Zaw Frazier or something like that on day 3. Although, I don't know, he might not be there. They might have to grab him at 133 if they really like him. UTSA, guy who like honestly has lots of shades of like a Richard Sherman or someone like that. As far as like the length, the strength, really big tester. Let's see, run over the chat here real quick before we get out of here. Nick Scorton or Walter Nolan sitting there at 31. Who are you taking? Ooh. This is a tough one. This is a really tough one. I think their answer is Walter Nolan because as much as I like Nick Scorton, he actually doesn't hit 2 out of the 3 thresholds that they like for edge defenders. He's a little light, a little small, 6'3" for him. So I think they would go Nolan. I don't know. It's tough. I don't think there's a wrong answer there. I think a slight lean towards Scorton because I think I've seen his ceiling be higher. And his ceiling last year at Purdue was the top 15 pick for me. Let's see here. There's one other. Cam Scadaboo last to the 3rd or the 4th round with that middling 40 time. I don't know. Cam Scadaboo is one of the more interesting analysis in this class where it's like the tape just says this guy has insane contact balance. Has more receiving yards than almost any running back in this class, including Travion Henderson. Not a great pass protector, But if you want to say we've got a system that's going to generate wide open gaps and gap man duo schemes, this is a guy who's going to eat that up. I love Cam Scatterboo as a change of pace back in kind of like a weird way. Like I think he could be the David Montgomery of like a Lions tandem, right? I think there's a lot of offenses that could use a Cam Scatterboo, but they've got to use him, and he's got to come in and produce the way that he produced at Arizona State. But there's some guys who just got to trust the tape, right? Like Kyron Williams, and what's his name from Tampa Bay, Bucky Irving. Those guys really poor athletic scores, worse than Cam Scatterboo, and are both like highly productive running backs. So some guys you just got to trust the tape on. But we're going to keep reviewing the tape here at Arrowhead Addict. We are just 10 days away. Here's what you can look forward to: a show every single day of the week here on Arrowhead Addict. We're full draft all the time here. Next Monday, come back here for the Intangibles. We'll be breaking down the latest draft rumors and going over our 10 My Guys, our favorite players in the draft. Thursday night, we will not have a show Thursday during the day because we will be breaking down every pick of the NFL draft first round. You want to be here for all of our instant reactions for when the Bills trade us another pick or whatever silly thing happens. Those best moments in the draft. It's not just Chiefs, right? Like the Michael Penix pick or, Cole Strange or whatever crazy thing happens. You want to be here because we'll be reacting. It won't just be me. It won't just be Christian. We'll have Patrick Allen. We'll have Sterling Holmes. We'll have Adam Best. We'll have the whole gang on here reacting with you guys in the chat. So please keep it locked on here. My top 100 big board just got tweeted out today. So follow up on that. And, as always here for me, for Christian, for producer Richard, who did a great job today. We thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe. Get us to 55,000 on YouTube. Thank you so much for watching. As always, go Chiefs.